Carrie's brother and his wife live in Las Vegas. And despite this fact, I assure you that they are fantastic, wonderful people. I love visiting Las Vegas because my brother-in-law and sister-in-law are not just family, they're just really great friends. But Vegas is not a place that I would want to live. Every day, it's hot. And I'm personally not a fan of casinos. I have family and friends who can handle gambling a little bit of money and they know when to quit, but I may just be too much of a prude. But I fear that there's a part of my personality type that is too addictive to know when to stop. But the last time we visited, someone, and I'm not going to name names, but she's sitting with us here today in the back corner, decided that we should go to a casino. She then decided to give everyone in our family about $5 of coins for us to play various slot machines. And when this person gave me the $5 of coins, I could feel my blood pulsate faster and faster throughout my body as my nerves heightened. My instant reaction was to question the wisdom of this idea, but I didn't because I discovered long ago that it usually isn't good to question the wisdom of this person. And I didn't want to be a wet blanket on everyone's fun, so we just went along. But I just couldn't put those coins in the slot machine. I felt stuck with feelings of guilt for not wanting to join my family in the fun, and even more guilt for leading my children into a lifelong addiction of gambling that would ruin their lives forever. You should know that whenever I start to think this way, Carrie says that I'm catastrophizing. And of course, she's right, because Carrie is always right. So what did I do with my feelings of guilt? I passed them along to my children by splitting up my $5 of coins between them. This let me off the hook of pulling the levers, and I justified it further by thinking that it allowed them to have about $1.70 of more fun. But one of the other reasons I don't like gambling is because the house always wins. The odds of any of us winning anything substantial is virtually zero. The odds of us losing all of our money is virtually 100%. But the house likes to provide us with miracles. Otherwise, why would anybody play? You hear rumors that someone on the other side of the casino has just pulled a lever and got the jackpot. And you think, oh, that could be me. But it's not going to be you, because it's never me, it's never you, and that's how the house wins. You pray to God, hoping for a miracle, but the house always wins, which means you lose. And I hate losing. And here's my point. It's easy to start treating God like a heavenly casino with slot machines. And this is one of the problems with the miracle stories in the Bible. For example, last week we talked about the miracle of Jesus multiplying the fish and the loaves of bread to feed 5,000 people. I mean, the miracle is a jackpot for the poor, the hungry, and the marginalized people in the story. And last week I told you that this feeding of the 5,000 is one of my favorite stories in the Gospels. And similarly, the other story that we heard today in the Hebrew Scriptures is one of my favorite stories in the Bible as well. Moses has just led the Hebrews out of slavery in Egypt. And they're in the desert, and as they go to the promised land, to freedom, they start complaining because there's not enough food. And how does God respond to the complaining Israelites? By saying, "You ungrateful Hebrews, if you only believed in me, I would have helped you. Now I am going to destroy you because you have complained against me." No, that's not how God responds. God responds to their complaining by meeting their needs. God responds with a miracle of sending bread, manna from heaven, and quail so that they could all eat if they just shared of what they had. This is the miracle that God provided for them. And in the Gospel of John, John wants us to know that Jesus came to show us who God truly is, because there are other stories in the Bible about God. There are stories in the Bible of God where if you complain, God might turn against you. We find those stories in the Bible, but we also find stories in the Bible where God doesn't turn against anyone. God just provides. And in Jesus, we find that God is not out to get you. God is not out to get anyone. God is out to make sure that everyone has their needs provided. God is out to love all people and nourish us all with good food and good bread and water that will sustain our bodies and our souls for life's journey. And so Jesus multiplied the fish and the loaves. Indeed, I love this miracle, but there can be a problem. It can leave the impression that Jesus is our divine casino. Prayer can easily become like a slot machine where we find ourselves in difficult situations and we pull the lever of prayer hoping that the jackpot of a miracle will occur. And when we treat Jesus that way, we will always be left disappointed. Today we find that the crowd that Jesus fed treated him like this divine slot machine. After Jesus fed them, they continued to follow him, and some people in the crowd went looking for him, but they weren't really looking for Jesus. They were looking for Jesus to perform another miracle. They came to him saying, "What sign are you going to give us so that we may see it and believe in you?" But they just saw Jesus perform a sign. They were developing an unhealthy addiction to signs, to the jackpot of a miracle. And they demanded that Jesus prove himself again and again to them by performing yet more miracles. And Jesus knew that if he gave in to their wishes, they would only demand more and more miracles to force him to prove himself to them. Jesus tells those who demanded another miracle that the work of God is not so much the miracle of feeding the 5,000, but the work of God is that we would come to believe in Jesus, whom God sent. And this language of believing in Jesus is tricky, especially in the Gospel of John. Some people hate John's Gospel because it emphasizes belief in Jesus. My problem with believing in Jesus is that it seems to imply intellectual assent to some doctrine that you have to get right in order to be good with God. But that's not the primary way that Jesus or John uses belief. The word belief in the original language is pistis. It's a Greek word that can mean belief, but it has much stronger connotations of trust. For the Gospel of John, the point is not to believe in Jesus with all of our intellect. It's to trust the way of Jesus. We know that countless people can believe in Jesus, but they may not trust in Jesus. They may not trust in following Jesus' way. I'm much more interested in people trusting in Jesus than I am in people believing in Jesus. And I think that's the greatest miracle in these stories. The story in Exodus of God providing the Hebrews in the wilderness and the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000 are ultimately stories about our transformation. They are about trusting that God's world, there is enough for everyone if we are willing to share. The miracle and the cultural jackpot is when our hearts are transformed to become more like Jesus. It's when we move away from a life of greed into a life of generosity. It's when we move away from a belief in scarcity towards a belief that there is enough for everyone. It's when we move away from a life of bitterness towards a life of forgiveness. It's when we challenge unjust systems of racism, classism, sexism, and homophobia with God's abundant love and care that reaches out to all people. For example, did you know that the very first followers of Jesus did not call themselves Christians? They actually called themselves followers of the way. They were followers of Jesus. The early Christian community intentionally lived out the miracle of Jesus feeding the 5,000. Whenever the early followers of the way got together, they met in homes and they made sure that everyone had enough money to get by for the next week and enough food to sustain their bodies. The early Christians were followers of Jesus, but we live in a culture where we aren't supposed to follow anyone. We're supposed to be our own man or our own woman. But the truth is that we're all following someone. Some people follow the president. Some people follow an alternative politician. Some people follow a boss or a parent or a friend. Still, some claim that they don't follow anyone, which really means they just follow themselves. But this leads us to be self-centered. It leads us to care primarily about ourselves. And when we do that, our world becomes only as big as ourselves. And when that happens, you lose, and everyone around you loses. So I've come to believe that it's much better for me to intentionally follow the way of Jesus. In fact, Jesus says he is the bread of life. When we consume the bread of life, we are nourished for the journey. When we follow Jesus and eat the bread of life, miracles do happen. Transformation does happen within our bodies and within our souls. We hit the jackpot. Don't get me wrong. There will still be suffering along the way. Jesus doesn't promise success. After all, even he went to the cross. But as we develop trust in the way of Jesus, we increasingly live into the realm of God, where everyone has their daily bread, everyone's debts are forgiven, and we are empowered to share of what we have so that all people may have enough. So may we continue to be followers of the way. May we trust that in Jesus there is enough, and may we follow Jesus wherever he may lead us. Amen. Hi, everyone. This is Adam Erickson, reminding you that no matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are welcome at Clackamas United Church of Christ. We are located at 15303 Southeast Webster Road in Milwaukee, Oregon. Our worship service starts at 10:30 on Sundays. Except for during the summer months, we start at 10 o'clock. If you'd like more information on our church, you can visit our Facebook page or our website at c-ucc.org. You can also reach out to me through email at adam@c-ucc.org. Until next time, grace and peace be with you.